Welcome. My name is Dennis. Run Roost Vans, and we're going to be going over a planning and layout deep dive. Probably have a few more people joining soon. Sorry for the delay in sending out the meeting invite and a little technical issue, but here we are. So I'm going to be presenting for about probably 25 minutes or so, and Emily is going to be helping out with grabbing a couple of questions. So if you do, feel free to type them in the chat. And we'll go over that in just a second. But ultimately, we're going to be talking a little bit about prioritizing your van layout, as well as some of the design tools that we use. And after that, I'll be going into quite a few of the vans that we built and giving you imagery on how we've set up those vans, both short vans with multiple seats, as well as long vans with multiple seats, and of course short and long vans just with two of the main factory seats in the front cab area. And then after that, we'll open it up for a Q&A. So if you have any questions in about the next 20 minutes, go ahead and use the chat function of Zoom, and you can type those questions in, and Emily's going to collate them and then ask me those at the end of my brief presentation. And then after that, we'll open it up for audio back and forth. Be aware that this webinar is going to be posted on YouTube like our prior two webinars have been. And so if you don't want your face or even your voice on YouTube, go ahead and turn off your video and maybe just use the chat function in the, to ask any questions. So I'll go ahead and launch in. For anyone who doesn't know who Roost is and who we are, we've been around about 6 years now. And we are mainly a van interior product company where we have an ecosystem of products that mount to our smooth rail mounting system, and we install products into Sprinter Transit and ProMaster Class B, typically higher roof camper vans. Now, there's a lot of van builds out there that do a lot of work that we don't typically do, and that's we don't typically do really high-end or high customized work. We do a lot of high-end work, but we have that standard set of products that get vans built pretty quickly, as well as with really high quality product too, with a tremendous amount of modularity and flexibility in how you can install them. And that's a big part of this webinar, is that benefit of how you can lay out these standard products in many different ways. So first thing though, with planning out the van layout is just really assessing what all you want to accomplish in your van. Seating is probably the first question that we ask because it has the biggest impact on the floor space and layout of the van. After that, you're sleeping, what kind of sleeping arrangements you want, and then how important kitchens and cooking is to you inside your van. And then of course, storage and then power needs as well is pretty important, but they tend to be a little bit further down the list when it comes to prioritization or layout. Ultimately, there's going to need to be some compromises because we have this questionnaire that we utilize. A lot of it's just interviewing with our customers, but we can also send that out to you as well. And it goes over what your real needs are and how often you tend to use those. 2-person, 3-person, 4-person seating arrangements. And then of course, all the sleeping and everything. And if we get a questionnaire back that looks a lot like this, we haven't figured out how to defy the laws of physics when it comes to building out a Class B style camper van, even in the longer wheelbase and the longer body style. Ultimately there has to be some compromises, and that's a big part of working with us and figuring out how we can best utilize the space that you're interested in building your van with. So not a lot of people know that the differences between, in this case, just Sprinter and Transit. Sprinter has the shortest body in this Class B market, as well as the longest body. The 144 wheelbase Sprinter, as well as the 170, are both extremes. Now, the Transit tends to be just a little bit longer for the regular body 148 wheelbase, and then a little bit shorter on the longer extended version 148 wheelbase. And that can throw people for a loop a little bit whenever they're really laying out the van, if they haven't decided yet exactly what they want to have, because they'll see a layout in, say, a 144 or 148 that doesn't work for the other because they just simply run out of room. So we can go over a couple of those details, and I have some notes regarding kitchen modules and overall size of kitchen modules and how they can interface with the wheel well. So a big part of our design consideration is obviously getting as much, storage in as possible, but also the egress of being able to walk through your van and having a entry and usable footprint or usable galley area inside of your van. With that 3-person seat, you can see here, it really commandeers that entire doorway area of the van. But with a 2-person seat, you can still fit in like a doorway kitchen cabinet or even a deeper style passenger kitchen cabinet and still have enough egress to walk out of your galleyway into through the doorway, it's the sliding doorway of the van. Now, there's mainly 3 zones that we tend to focus on: the seating zone, the kitchen zone, and then of course the sleeping zone. Now you can overlap those quite a bit, and there's some tools that I'll show you that we utilize and taking advantage of that. And of course, if you don't need one of those zones, you can expand it quite a bit, particularly if you don't need a 2-person or a 3-person bench seat added to the van. Another couple of considerations that I mentioned before, such as garage and power storage. And that's something that you as your own building out your own van need to decide on how important those are to you and what type of bed systems that you can utilize for the garage needs that you may have. But also when it comes to power, if you can put the power needs inside cabinetry closer to the kitchen, underneath the bed, or if you're using a dinette, then you can put some of those power needs and power supply in that cabinetry for, say, a dinette. I'll have a couple examples of those implementations to show you too. Another design tool that we utilize is a mood board. It's one thing about layout, but it's also having your van come out the other side of the build, not looking too busy. And it can be easy to do. As soon as you start putting in new elements, visual cues, then it can get busy pretty quickly. So we created something called a mood board, and we utilize the area of this, mood board to capture how much, say, bamboo, which we use a lot of, is going to be shown, hex ply, flooring material, or other details and colorways that you might have whenever you're building out your van. And it can be a really powerful tool to help simplify all the different materials that you want to install. This would be a pretty good example of maybe a little bit too busy. And we've utilized this with clients to kind of bring that to their attention. Another tool that we have are using inset panels when you're building out your van. So pretty much the same van, but obviously we have a couple windows installed here. This is a panel over, and this is inset panels. And that gives you a few tools, aesthetics being one of them, but also for side-to-side sleeping. And we'll give a couple examples of that in a bit. And you can gain just by having an inset panel, and not a flare space, but an inset panel approximately 6 to 8 inches, depending on the van, of side-to-side sleeping or just area to utilize. And this is an example of inset panels on a Sprinter van without windows. So regarding the zones, the seating zone has a great tool if you install a 2nd row bench seat. And that gives us a great mount to create a much larger table than otherwise would be able to be installed because we can attach to some of the framework of that bench seat. So whenever I have a family coming to me, then that's always a strong recommendation that we install one of the articulating tables on the 2nd row bench seat. Another couple of tools that we have in the kitchen area are utilizing our flip-up kit bed system to have a bed panel that actually folds down over the kitchen. And there's a couple of ways of going about this. On a longer van, you can have a much larger countertop with a countertop extension that goes underneath that flip-up kit on our flip-up kit bed system. Also, having a passenger side kitchen cabinet goes a long way to providing additional storage as well as access to the fridge And having a passenger side kitchen cabinet gives you a great tool of having a flip down table so that you can increase that usable living area of your van experience outside. And it goes even another step if you decide to get an awning to cover that outside area that you might be hanging out in. Now the sleeping, there's tends to be three main sleeping types. You have dinette, which can be quite substantial, big hangout area. It's great. Also elevated bed platform, such as our 3-panel flip-up kit and 2-panel flip-up kit. And of course, we have a hanging bed system as well that we call the strap-up bed system. And with those three tools, you have a lot of opportunity to get as much out of the small space that you're working with. Now, in regards to the garage, I hear a lot about people being interested in pull-out trays, and they can be a great option. We have found with our flip-up kit bed system that sliding tray doesn't tend to be as valuable, really, because you have quite a bit of opportunity to access your garage by flipping up that bed panel. Now, one thing about the tray as well to be aware of is that depending on how you pack the inside of your van, it can sometimes be problematic while you're pulling the tray out, and then things can get bound and in the way if they're not secured properly. Another last consideration as far as what all we need to put in the van and what we need to provide accommodation for is power storage. This is a big reason why we're big proponents of portable power stations. In particular, we use a lot of Goal Zero product, and bang for the buck is a big reason, but mostly it's the volume. We can get an inverter, pretty much a 400 amp hour battery system, solar charge controller, and a lot of functionality and a lot of power for a good price in a simple power station, as opposed to building what you see here on the left, which is a full custom power station with several batteries and then all the components individually. So there's another tool that we utilize in order to get as much into a small van environment in our builds. Now, I'm going to launch into the 4 different types of van layouts, or the vans, I guess, van sizes with different layouts. And then you have the short van with multi-seats, short van with no additional seating, then a long van with multi-seat, as well as a long van with no additional seating. So we're starting off with the short multi-seat van. And this van, as well as all the ones that we're going to be presenting, I've included the name of the van. So if something stands out to you, recognize or capture that name so that we know what we can go back to. This van is the Sharma 144, and it uses a dinette with a smaller kitchen module and, of course, the second row of seats where we put that additional larger table, as well as that seat, by the way, can be removed. And that table has a convenient felt line storage system, which is pretty typical on our builds. And you can see here with the detail that mount for the table on that second row bench is extremely flexible as far as the vertical location of that mounting arm. And that gives you the ability to have a very dynamically positionable table that's far enough from the wall so that the tabletop size can grow much larger than if that mount was attached to the wall. As far as the dinette's concerned, this one also has a strap-up bed system, so you can sleep 4 people as well as with the additional bench seat belt 4 people as well. And it also includes a loo box up in that front corner and a tremendous amount of storage. The table system on the dinette also uses that articulating table mount, lagoon table system, and pretty easy to set up the dinette whenever it's time to go to sleep. Something of note, with this 144 Sprinter and the location of that wheel well, you'll notice I have some notes in the next few slides that talk about how large of a kitchen module you can get. And in this case, I would call this a 1.5 module kitchen, because we have a full size fridge, and then you'll see a pretty small storage pocket on the left side, which is a 1.5. we'll be showing a couple of different models that actually have in this same kind of general van the full 2 kitchen module systems in that same location, because the Transit has a wheel well that's a little further back that gives us more room to work with. So next van is Stooling. It's also a 144 Sprinter, and you can see that single kitchen module. Now, the reason for that is that we have a 3-panel bed that sleeps front to back. And this also has a strap-up kit, strap-up bed system installed in it as well. And of course, we had some opportunity over the wheel well to put a 20-gallon water tank in, and our out-the-door rear hot water shower system as well. Of course, that table is another powerful piece to add into the van, as I mentioned already. And going into the next van, Town, same thing. We have a 3-panel flip-up kit, but in his van, he opted to put, instead of a kitchen in, he just added a bench. And since we didn't have any room for the power system, we put the power system in our power station box in the back corner of the van. Now, our next van, Avalar, it's also 144. Now we have a 2-panel bed system in this van, and we added some flip-up cots, which is a new product for us here at Roost Vans. And what this allows for is side-to-side sleeping. Now in this Sprinter, being a little bit smaller in the flip-up kit bed system, side-to-side is set at a lower height. The customer was actually pretty short, so they could do that without having to worry about trying to get into the window pockets or even installing flares. So this worked out perfect for them and getting their whole family on the road with a small kitchen as well. Now with a Slavinik is that 3-panel bed system, but instead of installing the bed at a lower height, we actually installed it over the kitchenette. And since this was the 148 wheelbase, you'll notice that we have 2 kitchen modules instead of 1.5 right behind that second row of seats. On top of that, we have a 3-panel bed system that allows for front to back sleeping, and that front flip-up kit will flip up and allow access to the countertop. Great design tool to increase your kitchen. You also have room with this 148 wheelbase Transit van and that second row of seats to have a drawer cabinet, which is just an incredible use of space. Here's an example of a McCaffrey van. In that case, we used a 1.5 module kitchen because they were installing a 20-gallon tank over the wheel well. So we ran out of that little bit of room that we otherwise would have had in order to provide more water capacity for the client. But something cool that they did that I really like is, I mean, they have a 2-panel bed system technically for side-to-side sleeping, but they had that a third panel we installed a little bit lower so that they could use it as a quick bench at a lower setting. And of course, with that van, we also put that 20-gallon water system in the back. All right, now, so we're getting to we're still in that short wheelbase van layout. And this van, Cornelius, I wanted to bring this one up because it's a pretty common product to have what's called a fold-down sleeper bench. And it is a pull-tested, seat-belted style bench, so you can seat belt 4 people while driving. What we found with these fold-down style benches, now they're great, but I don't believe that they're really very comfortable. They're pretty hard, but they also really commandeer a lot of space in the van because you have to leave enough room for the seat to both fold down both directions. And they can sleep a 6-foot person okay, but I tend to find that most of the ones that we have utilized are a little firm and not incredibly comfortable. So something to be aware of, that in combination to how much space it commandeers behind the bench seat in order to be utilized is an important consideration to judge for yourself. It's also tends to be a pretty tight fit if we use this standard style passenger kitchen cabinet. Moving on to a long van now. This is the extended version of the Transit. And this is actually a pretty old build for us. I believe actually our first transit build that we did. And we put in a nice big dinette system with a couple of flip up cots as well. And it's just having a longer wheelbase or a longer van body is tremendously helpful for a family. There's just simply more room to work with. So we had a full dinette, seats and sleeps, 5 technically, because at this time this family had a pretty young child and they just co-slept with them on this lower dinette. And you still had enough room for a full 2-module kitchen on the driver's side, as well as, since it had a 3-seat van, then the overall layout did not allow any space to be used inside the doorway for, say, a passenger side kitchen cabinet, but it still gave us enough room to put a full module in on the passenger side that you could still walk through. And in that case, we used a drawer cabinet, which gave a tremendous amount of storage, and of course the kitchen cabinet on the driver's side. All right, next van. There's a lot of them. We have probably about 4 more vans that'll be going over. So if any of them again pop out to you, write the name down and we'll go back to them. Chang, we used again these flip up cots, and then we used a strap up bed system. What I love so much about this van is that you have a full walkthrough from the back of the van all the way to the front of the van. You can come in the back or the front, well, I guess I should say side, and you can immediately sit down on some of these benches, which is really the design and intent of this vehicle. Reason being is they were big skiers. So they wanted to utilize their van a little bit less so for like camping and sleeping, and a little bit more for like a ski rig, so that they could come in and take their boots off and get dried up, and obviously sleep if they needed to in the strap-up bed, and of course in the flip-up cots. We also utilized a lot of table mounting opportunities because the parents oftentimes work on the road. So you'll see we have a table mount on the B-pillar at the driver. We also have a table mount on the B-pillar of the passenger, and of course on the second row bench seat. That's a great great. And a full-size compact kitchen cabinet, just right beside or right behind that second row passenger bench seat. We did have to notch that kitchen cabinet around the wheel well, but it worked fine. All right, so we had a 170 Sprinter, again, another long multi-seat van with a 3-panel flip-up kit and also that strap-up bed. A lot of our products are really flexible to be used together or autonomously. And we put in this van actually 2 20-gallon water tanks in, which was I think the only time we've ever done that actually. But he wanted to make sure to have plenty of water to hose off the dogs and take a shower if you needed to. Now, Claw, notice the floor. In this case, installed a smart floor system that gives a tremendous amount of flexibility on exactly where you want to dynamically reposition those seats. It's a big part of the budget, but it's incredibly effective, beautiful, high quality floor, and the seats are really pretty exceptional as well. We were still able to put in a nice large 2-module kitchen bank system right in front of the 3-panel flip-up kit bed system, and then of course behind that second row bench. Now our van, our Roost van, has that 3-panel flip-up kit bed system along with the strap up, and you'll notice that we ended up putting a standard transit seat, double seat in, and of course the 2-module driver kitchenette and a loo box on the passenger side. Now we're going to be getting down to what I call the short couple van. Changing gears, we're at 3 of the 4 van types. Next one will be the long couple van. And in this short couple van, Townsend will call, great build. He had a nice bench seat array along the driver's side, a single kitchen module on the driver, as well as our passenger kitchen cabinet with a drawer fridge and flip down table on the passenger side. Few options for installing the articulating tables for a couple that works on the road. Sometimes they want to sit together and sometimes they do not. So that was a great opportunity for us to give them a lot of options depending on what their needs were on the day. Marver, also a short couple van, but in this one, we ended up putting in benches all the way to the back on the driver's side. And then, of course, that passenger kitchen cabinet. Norris is a mid-roof transit, still a short couple van, and just a tremendous amount of storage cabinetry for a pretty, what ended up being a pretty simple build. Now with the dinette, if you don't really need a lot of garage space, or say you're bringing bicycles, but you're going to be using a hitch on the back of the van, a dinette really can be a great option. It opens up the interior and the environment of the van so much because you have multiple hangout areas in your van, which is a really important consideration on thinking about the layout, is how many different areas can you really open up and you know, relax in. Oftentimes when I'm using the van, then my family will still be asleep. Maybe I'll get up and make some coffee and I'll use the front seats and swivels and set up the table so that I can do some reading or some work while everyone's still asleep. And in this Mar van with the dinette, you'll notice that she didn't have any water. She decided that she just wanted a pretty simple build with no doodads, really, a heater and a couple other things, but ultimately, she wanted to be able to get on the road and have a really comfortable environment, possibly sleep overnight, but she wanted to be able to go to pretty much anywhere and have her own space. And that's what we did for her here. And that's a huge dinette that she can, I mean, pretty much you can have a Thanksgiving dinner in that area with the size of the dinette. Now, this was a unique van. This is Seculic. We're getting into the long and the last series of vans, the long couple van, as I call it. And they decided, even though it's just two people, they wanted a dinette and a strap up as well, because they wanted to leave the dinette ready to go. And they wanted to go in, hang out at the dinette, really spread their wings. And when it was time to sleep, they wanted to drop the strap up, and it was really important to them that they could sleep on a level surface. And that's something that the strap up bed system does exceptionally well. If the van's off level, you can level the strap up bed and have a level night of sleep, even if your van is just really cattywampus. One of my favorite products that we offer is the compact passenger kitchen cabinet. Has a flip up table, gives you much more galley width space, which is an important consideration. And there's a couple vans coming up too. The last ones that I'll illustrate that with, just to make the interior environment feel larger. I mean, these Class B camper vans, even the long ones, they're pretty small ultimately in comparison to an RV. So all the tools that we can use at our disposal to try to make them feel larger, inset window pocket panels, for instance. And then, you know, not having full height wardrobes, for instance, go a long way to give you a bigger feel for the inside of the van. This is a pretty good example of increasing the cabinet countertop space using the flip-up kit bed system. You can see how that countertop extends underneath the flip-up kit bed system. In this van, we call Marmon. Put a custom sink in. Not unusual for us, but not typical. And you can see how that flip-up kit panel goes over the countertop. Nice big layout, big floor plan. This is our standard depth kitchen cabinet, and you'll notice how that galley space gets a little bit tighter. If we were to use the passenger side compact cabinet, you'd have about 4 additional inches of galley width to walk in. Blue box, and then of course a nice mounting point so we can get a larger articulated table in that front area. You guys are probably seeing a little bit of a theme as far as how we've seen the ability to maximize the space and get good living environment set up by, you know, swivel seats, tables, etc. And our last van, Wellmaker. By no means are these all the vans that we built, but the last van I'll be showing you today. One of the bigger floor plans, I guess, by using a 2-panel flip-up kit bed system, so we can get bicycles underneath, and that compact passenger side cabinet that I've been mentioning. Of course, we also have the inset window panels, so that when you're on your 2-panel bed, you can sleep side to side as long as you're, 6 foot or less. And you can do that without flare spaces. And you can see the access you have to the garage underneath, both from the front and from the rear. And that passenger side flip down table and a flip up countertop extension. And that pretty much wraps up a lot of information that I just kind of threw at you guys. So I'm not sure if many questions have been asked, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up for Emily to follow up with any of those questions that may have been asked. And then after that, we will have you guys raise your hand if you have any further questions, or we can just get a dialogue going. It's pretty, it's not too large of a audience today, so I don't think we'll have any problem with keeping track.
Hi guys. We didn't have a whole lot of questions. However, Eric was talking to us about his layout. He's pretty tall and he is inclined to use Ford. He'd like to have a bench bed that runs front to back instead of sideways, and maybe side by side sleeping. He doesn't have a second row of seats, and he doesn't know about the kitchen yet. But I'm pretty sure during the slides, we actually had a very similar picture of a van set up like that. I think when he sent us that chat, there was a pretty good picture.
Yeah, I tend to be a little bit more fond of Ford, and actually, Eric, if you just want to unmute, feel free to do so, and we can speak on it. There are some people that have used the benches to sleep on, and in a way, the dinette is kind of like that. Oh, I see you're unmuted. Maybe you could help clarify a little bit what your question is.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering about, I wanted a bench type bed. It could be either a fold down or something that kind of converts into a bed. Then you can also sit on it. And so the kitchen, I like that. I like the design of the kitchen cabinet that's on the slider door that has the little drop down counter, and then perhaps a small fire stove thing in there. I wouldn't be inclined to have a lot of water. I'm kind of thinking more modular, like those kind of big 5-gallon jugs you get at Walmart, and it has a little pumper and then it pumps the water out. So do you have just I'm not really sure exactly what my needs are. Probably what I really need to do is I need to go rent one of these vans and drive it around for a few days and see what I think. Might be a better option.
I highly recommend that. Particularly, do you have a van already?
No.
Okay. Particularly if you're trying to make a decision between the Transit or Sprint or even ProMaster. One of our prior webinars that's up on YouTube now does talk about the pros and cons and a lot of subjectivity on my part regarding the difference of those vans, how they drive, how they handle, and of course the options too. So absolutely, we do rent a van ourselves. We have our van Spaceball. It's a longer body, a 148 Transit that has, actually I have a picture of that in here, that we rent through GoCamp, and there's a lot of other options too. So you can browse through GoCamp and Outdoorsy, and those two resources will give you a tremendous amount of opportunity to kind of fine tune and dial in what you think you might want.
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to meet you and give you a download. Take care. Have a good night.